What's up, y'all? Brother J Day. We had a little video glitch. I started a video, it lasted about 5 minutes, and then for some stupid reason my computer decided to quit all on its own time. I don't know what that's about. It's annoying. It's probably a Microsoft thing. But anyway, I'm going to run through this real quick again and show you exactly what I did. So hold on a second. Alright. Now in our liquid gravity trap, you see the water running out, and you see how it went nice and even over the riser. And now it's taking a perfect spiral right down in the center of the bowl. And that's because I already adjusted this bowl. Now this bowl is movable, right? So there is only one position this bowl can be in that will be perfectly level to gravitation, so that the water goes over the riser evenly on all sides. That's extremely important in order to get efficient processing going on in this bowl. Which brings me to my one accessory. This is an accessory for this bowl, and there's a reason for that, and I'll show you the reason very quickly. When you first turn on the water, you'll see what happens. It's going to overflow dramatically. Whoa! You see all that water flying out of there? Something like 10 gallons a minute is flying over the side of the bowl. And that's the reason you want to have this lid right here. There's something else you should know. Don't ever put your concentrates in here with no water. You always put the water in. Once the water is leveled out and you've got everything leveled out nice and even, then you put your concentrates in. Okay? Now that sounds really simple to remember, but if you've run 10 pounds of materials through here, you're going to want to fish out heavy rocks and things like that. To do that, you must stop the water. When you're ready to restart the water, you will always put your lid on your bowl and seal it down. And the reason for that is not so much to conserve the water. The reason for that is because that huge stream of water flying over the side of the bowl will blow out your blondes. That's true, and that's handy. But it'll also blow out your micro gold and your flour gold, and you don't want that. Okay? So once you got your bowl in there, it is not level right now. Right now it is unlevel. Just to prove a point, I'm going to make it really unlevel. It's very unlevel right now. It's not level to gravity. But you put your lid on there and seal it down. And give it a little mash down in the bucket. Alright? Next thing you do, you don't have to hold the bowl. It'll fill up super fast. Alright? But the next thing you do is you apply the power to get your water going. Boom. You saw how the lid popped up right there? That's because of the water pressure hitting the top of that lid. That would have blown all of your material right out. Now listen. Okay, the bowl is more than half full. It's over the hose. And now the bowl is all the way full. I can tell by the sound of the motor and by the sound of the water inside the bowl. So the next thing you do is you take your lid off. And now what you have is you have your liquid gravity bowl spinning like a beast. It's actually pretty level right now, but I'm going to have to adjust it a little bit because you want that vortex going straight through the center of the gravity hole. So right now the vortex is kind of angling off this way. In order to get it to come to me, I have to tilt the bowl that way. In other words, you tilt the bowl in the opposite direction of the vortex, and that'll adjust the vortex around. And you'll have to play with it, but you'll get it. The most important reason to get it, well, there are two very important reasons, one related to the gold and one related to the motor. If your motor runs dry, you're going to get a huge surge of water when it takes up water again, okay? Alright, so let me show you this vortex now. Wait a minute. I gotta wait for it. Alright. So what's happening here is my water reservoir only has water in it to right about the water line on my pan. And the way you can fix that, you should just add more water. In other words, even though my bowl is full, my water reservoir is about half empty. So every time the motor runs dry, you'll lose water pressure. And then, once the motor gets enough water inside of the reservoir to start pumping again, you're going to get a big surge of water. Now, you want to avoid that. And the way you do that is you just add water until it's no longer running low. Uh-oh. Alright, so the long and short of it is, it's annoying trying to get this vortex just right. And the pump balanced out. Because you got to balance the pump out and get the vortex just right. But when you got the pump balanced out and the vortex running just right, you'll no longer get an overflow from here. You'll just get a nice steady circulation of water. Now, you can tell by the bubbles on the surface this water is circulating. It doesn't look like it's going that fast, but the water at the bottom of this bowl and the crease of this bowl is shooting along there at like 20 miles an hour. It's going really fast. The water at the top is only moving along at maybe a couple miles an hour. You will get a little bit of oversplash, and obviously that's the reason you want to set this whole system down inside your catch bowl. That way if something does flash over the top, it'll go down inside your catch bowl and you won't lose any materials. So with all of that said, we're going to go ahead and start processing some of this material. Rats. Catch pin's wobbling around there. My bowl's wobbling a little bit. It's kind of hard to get this level because the concrete floor that my catch pan is sitting on is not level. That's why I set it on my case, because my case and the wood floor that my case is sitting on, they are level. But anyway, so this should work pretty good. This should work at about 90% efficiency, but it does work better up here because this is a more level surface. But this is enough to show you what I'm talking about. So here's how you load it. You want to take your material with water in it. Remember, wet to wet, dry to dry. If you're dry panning, it's got to be bone dry. If you are using any kind of water process, then you want your material to be wet before you put it in there. And the way you add it in there is the same way you handle your pan. You just put in a little bit at a time, and you let the water run that material out of the cat food can or tuna fish can or whatever kind of can or spoon you're using. Now you can see how I'm just gently dipping it in, dipping it in, dipping it in, just like I did in the last video. I'm pretty sure I put up a video a little while ago that didn't have a lot of talk. It just had me doing a lot of work. So you just dip it in just like that. You see that's the material I got left. And basically you just let the water, the pressure of the water, pull that material out of the pan. You notice that I'm applying I'm applying the cons behind the water hose. Okay, the water hose is shooting this way. The nozzle for the hose is here, and I'm adding the cons at the back behind the water hose. Two reasons for that. Number one, the water pressure in front of this hose is very high. And number two, applying the sand this way will spread it out over the bowl better. Tell you one thing, this is not level. You should work a little bit better. I've lost a significant amount of water shooting over the side, and I have to replace all that water. Now here's how you do that, just so you know. There are two ways you can do it. I recommend that you pour it straight into the main bowl. That way, I'll explain that in a second. Let me just say this. Pour it straight into the main bowl. That way you don't disturb any heavies that have already accumulated somewhere in your, you don't want to disturb the heavies that are accumulated. You want to let them just kind of do their thing. So if you have to add water directly into the crease or the seam of your primary bolt. Damn. I really don't like this stuff flying over the top like that. Even if it's going to mess up my vortex. I don't want to lose any more water out of my bowl. It's running my pump dry. Now I'm going to be honest about it, the rest of this video is going to be pretty boring. There's not going to be a whole lot to see until we get toward the end. So if you want to fast forward to something like around, I don't know, maybe minute 25, because this video is going to run about 40 minutes long, so you can fast forward to around minute 25 where there'll be actually something brand new to see. But basically, what I just did a second ago, that's what you do. You just keep doing that. Make sure you're adding wet to wet. And don't put in too much at a time, just a tiny little bit at a time. If you have a little bit of excess on your can and it falls in the pan, then let that process around the bowl a few minutes before you add some more. Or at least a few seconds. And once it gets down to the level of the can or the spoon that you're using, just let water do its trick. Now there's one thing I should tell you. The opening to the can, you want to tilt that toward the outside wall. You want to tilt that toward the outside wall. If you get a big surge of water all of a sudden, you'll hear it coming before you see it coming, so keep your ears open. The reason for that is if you have your can in the water when that big surge of water comes along, that can will cause water pressure to push heavy materials over the edge of your trap that otherwise would have stayed trapped in your bowl. So that's one way you end up losing 20% down inside your water reservoir. It's not being careful about getting your can out of the way when a big surge of water comes along. Now I'm sure that a lot of you are thinking what I'm thinking. I need to work on this a little bit more so that I can get rid of those water surges. To an extent I agree with you, but I've learned how to use those water surges to my advantage. For one thing, inside of the gravity trap, that's where I'm going to catch all of my gold and fine materials, is inside of the gravity trap. Out here on the outer rim, that's basically blondes. Now I will get a lot of black sand on the outer rim at the end, but all along the way in the process I'm using my snuffer bottle to snuffer out black sand that's collecting along the inside tray of the gravity trap. So you didn't realize that, but that inside tray right there is designed that way. I've made about 10 of these bowls, and the first bowls I made, they didn't have an inside tray, and I realized very quickly I was losing a lot of material like that. See, when this water goes over the edge of the riser, it hugs along the wall of that inside bowl down into the tray, and that means the heavy materials hug the edge of the bowl, hug the edge of this blue bowl on the inside down into the edge of that tray before they go over the gravity trap. And so you get a whole lot of micro gold. You get a lot of micro gold on that collection tray inside the on the inside of the riser. And as far as these big surges of water, I really don't let them bother me that much. And the reason for that is because I got a 4-inch riser on this bowl. And there are materials, there are rocks and things like that that I do not want to keep. They're blondes. But in order to get them over that 4-inch riser, I need a significant amount of water pressure for some of them in order to go over that riser. So these little surges don't really bother me too much. You just have to get accustomed to the equipment you're working with. Now, I will admit that a nice, steady, constant stream of water is the ideal. However, like I said, these little surges of water actually push those blondes over the edge, and they don't push my black sand or my micro gold over the edge, and you'll see that in a little while. Now, without doing any great amount of work, I've already collected a significant amount of black sand on the shelf inside my riser. I'm not paying attention and I'll get hit with a water surge, but I usually hear them coming. Like just a second ago, you saw that water surge up. I heard it coming. Now you get a lot of blonde material, a lot of really small blonde material down inside that collection tray also. And that's one of the reasons I really don't mind these little surges of water, because they help rinse the blondes off of that collection tray. After about 5 minutes of processing your material in there, you're going to get a significant amount of black sand. And you're going to need to do something with that to separate that from the blondes that are in there. Here's what you do. You wait for the water to go down so you don't have a surge. And it's not quite the same as when you're using your pan. When you tap this, you want to tap it all the way around the edge. That way it makes the black sand go hugging up against the edge of that blue riser on the inside. And like I said, when you get a surge of water, don't tap nothing, just let it sit. Okay, and once that surge goes down, and by the way, you might want to hold the bowl like that. And what'll happen is the black sands will hug up against the edge of the blue riser, and the blondes will go down through the gravity trap. And as I've mentioned before, no matter what you do, no matter what technique, no matter what tool you use, remember the rule of 20%. The first time you process the material, you are going to lose 20 to 30% of your black sands and gold, either in your catch pan, or if you're using your 12-inch Garrett, you're going to lose that 20% in your catch pan. If you're using a liquid gravity bowl, you're going to lose that 20% down inside of your water reservoir. There's really no way around it. That's why I say you want to process your material 3 times before you toss it out. If you process it 3 times before you toss it out, you're pretty sure you caught just about everything that was worth catching. And when you look down inside of that gravity tray, don't let the swirl fool you. The swirl will warp the light traveling through it, and you'll think that you've got material going down through the gravity trap that you really don't. Okay? Wait until the water is steady and you don't have a surge of water, and then look down there. It's like now I gotta wait a second. I do have a little bit falling through the gravity trap now I want to keep. But you just tap your bowl, and it'll tap back up there against that blue riser, just like after you stratify your material and you tap the Garrett. You know, okay, this ain't my Garrett pan, but you know, you stratify your material in your pan and you tilt it towards you a little bit and you tap, and that makes the gold rise up to the top of the pan, and it makes the black sand and blondes fall to the bottom. Well, it's the same principle here. You tap this pan. Don't do it when you got water surging. Okay, you got a water surge, don't tap nothing. But once the water calms down and it's nice and placid, go ahead and tap it. And the more black sand you get in there, the more you want to tap, because black sand will start to fall over that gravity will start to fall over the tray into the gravity trap. Alright. And by tapping that bowl, what you're doing is the blondes will automatically fall toward the gravity trap, and the heavies will slide out toward the blue riser. But remember, tap all the way around your bowl. Don't just tap the top, because what will happen then is if you just tap the top, then the black sand that's back on this side will travel toward the gravity trap and fall through the hole. So tap all the way around the bowl. Or you can do what I do. We give it a little double tap on both sides simultaneously. That seems to work pretty decent too. But you'll get the hang of it. You know, there's little tweaking things. You got to tweak your own system. You made the gravity bowl. So tweak it and figure out how to make it work to its maximum efficiency. What I'm doing here is what makes this gravity bowl work to its maximum efficiency. Alright. So now we need a snuffer bottle. Now if you look at my snuffer bottle, you'll see there are no concentrates in there. Watch this. I'll fix that. Ah, yeah, that's good stuff. As far as the water surges, you don't really have to be worried about your snuffer bottle too much. Water surges with your snuffer bottle in that gravity trap isn't going to hurt anything. It'll stop some blondes from coming over the riser for a split second while your snuffer bottle's in there, but it won't cause any of your heavies to fall down through the gravity trap. Now I let this run a good long time before I started snuffing stuff out of there. Normally I'd have been snuffing stuff out of here a lot quicker, because that collection tray inside the riser, it gets filled up pretty fast. You want to tap it, and the area you're tapping at, that's where the black sand is, so that's where you want to snuffer at. That's another reason you want to have a nice long aquarium hose on your snuffer bottle. Yeah, I gotta push this aquarium hose down in there a little bit. I saw a tiny little bit of concentrates come out of my snuffer bottle and fall back into my main bowl, which is a good point. When your snuffer bottle gets full of water like that, you have to empty it out in order to collect more material. Squirt it into your main bowl, the white bowl. Don't squirt it down into here, because if you do, any materials you might lose will go straight through that trap. So squirt it into your main bowl, like so. Tilt it up, squirt it out. Tilt it up, squirt it out, just like that. Okay, now hold it in and go ahead and snuffer up some more. Alright, now I still got a heap of black sand in there. But check this out. Wait a minute. Thing is leaking. It's gonna leak all over my computer, and you guys already know I've had enough of that nonsense. Dry this off real quick. Y'all see all those cons in there? So I just processed more raw material in 15 minutes than I can process in 6 hours with that 12-inch Garrett. And that's the whole point of this. This does exactly the same thing as that 12-inch Garrett, but it does it way, way faster. When you get done with this, you will still have to go to the 12-inch Garrett to really classify your black sand from your gold and get your gold out of there. And the reason for that is you can go down to flour gold in this bowl, but I don't do that because you will lose, the water pressure will push a significant amount of that flour gold through the trap. So I don't do it like that. When I get down to a real low concentration, and keep in mind I started with 30 pounds of beach sand. And what I got there is about 2.5, maybe 3 grams of black sand and some micro blondes. Or actually some fairly large blondes and some micro gold and black sand. Now I do have to admit that these water surges are annoying me a little bit. Mostly just annoying me. They're not hurting anything, but they're kind of getting on my nerves though. You see how I'm holding the bowl here while I tap it? The reason for that is because when I'm tapping the bowl, I can knock it off a level. But if I put a slight amount of pressure on the opposite side, then I can tap and I don't have to worry about losing my level. And I don't want to lose my level, because if you lose your level, then it's not going to work very efficiently. And what I'm doing here is I am pulling the heavies back here against my blue riser, and the really light stuff is going to flow through the gravity trap. Now I've got some really small like nanometer size material in my tray. So what I did is I just unhooked the cord on my battery. And like I said, these golf cart batteries have a little hole. Can't see that. Let me show you that if I can. These golf cart batteries have a little hole in the electrode, and that's convenient because then you can just this is the electrical lead, and it slides in and out. Can I get this in a position where you can actually see it? It does not want me to let you see it. Okay, so you can see that wire actually slides in and out of that hole, and that's very convenient. When I want to turn it off, I just push the wire so that there's no connection. And when I want to turn it on, keep in mind this wire is at like a 120-degree bend. So when I want to turn it on, I just pull the wire until it makes a connection. It's very easy. It's very useful. Now, I'm trying to show you this black sand in here from a camera attached to my computer is really quite hard. In fact, it's really quite impossible actually. But I have a lot of really fine micro material in here. Now normally what I would do is I would stop the water, because I still have a little bit of water down in there, and I have an escape hole underneath of my bowl. There's a little inch gap about that big so water can flow back and forth between the two bowls. That doesn't really affect the process of vortex action here. What that does is it makes it very easy for me to clean out the material in here, because all I have to do is tilt the entire bowl towards the escape hole down here. I don't have it marked, but I don't really need to have it marked. I know exactly where it's at, but you can mark it if you want to. So when you put that bead around the edge of your riser before you set it in there, make sure you leave about a 1 inch gap, maybe a 2 inch gap. Always have an escape on your bowl. That way you have an escape, and the water will run through that escape between the riser and the main bowl, and it'll set your material right here in the main bowl so you can easily snuffer it out. See, once this is glued in here, once this riser is glued in here, that baby is in there permanently. And getting little pickers and things out from inside this riser is quite difficult. So you leave yourself about a 1-inch escape, maybe even a 2-inch escape, so that you can tip your bowl toward your escape and have the black sand and stuff flow through that escape into your main bowl where you can snuffer it out. Okay? Alright, so that's how that works. Now I've still got a lot of material here, and we're going to keep on going, okay? One thing about this though, let me turn this battery so it's easy to reach again now that I showed you. You don't want the water to surge out real fast into this trap because I've got material in here. So the way you do that, for one thing, I need to add some water. Let me do that. And keep in mind, my water is pre-mixed. Even though you don't see me every single time adding jet dry to my bowl, you can bet your bottom dollar that there is jet dry in my water pre-mixed. Now if your system is turned completely off, I advise you to pour the water directly into the gravity trap. When there is water running in the bowl, you want to add the water to the outside. But if your bowl is off and you don't have any water swirling in it, adding water to the outside will push material through your trap into the gravity hole. So when the bowl is turned off and you don't have any water circulating in the bowl, then you want to add the water directly through the gravity trap. And I need quite a bit of water, because a whole lot of water sloshed out of the bowl when I was first setting it up. Where's our timeline at? We're at 32 minutes. Okay. Let me pause and think for a second, because time is a critical situation here. But I have showed you how to operate this bowl. I've showed you how to feed the material into it. I showed you how to load it up with the water. And very quickly, I'm going to show you what I've got in my bowl right now. First of all, I've got the equivalent of 6 hours worth of 12-inch panning right here in this bottle, and it only took me 15 minutes to get it. So that's a huge time saver right there. Yes, I will still have to process this material down in my pan, but I'd rather process 3 grams of material instead of 30 pounds of sand. You had to admit, 3 grams of material versus 30 pounds of sand, it's not even a competition. It's not even a competition. So you see what I'm doing with my bowl right here, right? I'm very gently swishing my material into my main bowl. And I want to get a little bit of hose lead here so that I can go ahead and right here on the bowl just show you what's going on. Wait a minute, let me swing it around on the other side. And yes, this is exactly how I do it. The way I'm doing it right now, this is exactly how I do it. I hardly ever disassemble my bowl. I just leave the whole thing put together because it's good to go. Now I'm going to hold that for a second. Take your snuffer. And I know it's hard for y'all to see, but take your snuffer and just squirt it very gently into your main bowl. Remember, the gold is the heaviest thing in there. That means the very last thing that's going to come out of this pan is going to be gold. Alright. Well, hold on. Let me slide this out of the way. I'm gonna pan right out of here. Just shake, shake, shake. And get the blondes to go above the heavies. And let me slide back, see? Just like I'm doing with my Garrett pan, I can do it right here out of the lid of my coffee can. You don't have to have any super duper heavy, expensive, professional stuff to make this work. The heavies are going to go to the bottom, and believe me, gold and black sand doesn't care if you got a Garrett pan or a coffee can lid. It's still going to go to the bottom crease. Wash your blondes off. Shake it down. Just like with the Garrett, start level, then go to about a 30, in this case about a 30-degree angle, because it's a short little shallow ledge there. And yes, ladies and germs, that's just how you do it. That's how you acquire about 2 grams of black sand in about 15 minutes instead of 6 hours. Just like that. Okay, so now you've seen the whole process. You saw me how to clean out the bowl. You saw the whole 9 yards. Alright, so I wish you greatest of luck in your prospecting adventures. And that's not the end of my videos. There will be more series videos coming along. But in the meantime and in between time, peace, love, and soul. Get that gold. Enjoy your brand new liquid gravity bowl. Blue bowl. I'm not stealing your corporate name title. It's not a blue bowl, it's a liquid gravity bowl, but it does exactly the same thing, and it does it just as well as that that $180 blue bowl. Okay, so I just showed you how to make a liquid gravity bowl for about $6 in parts in about an hour of your time. And well, that doesn't count the sump pump. The sump pump is $30, but if you bought a blue bowl, guess what? It doesn't come with a pump. You have to hook it up to the sump pump too, so you'd still have to spend $30 on top of the $180, and that brings that to what, $210? So you can get a $210 blue bowl, or you can build one for about $7. Alright, y'all. Peace, love, and soul. Get that gold. Like, subscribe, share. I got love for y'all. I want y'all to get rich the way God meant for you to get rich, and that ain't begging for no paycheck. That's receiving the rewards that your Creator put right here on this earth for you. Your food, your water, they come from the earth. Gold, silver comes from the earth. Think about it. Here's another thing to think about, even if you live in the city. Did you know that the average tomato has over 100 seeds in it? So if you pay $1 for a tomato, you can grow a tomato vine that will produce 100 tomatoes and sell each of them for $1. That's $100 profit off of your first dollar, and there's still 99 seeds left in that original tomato to grow 99 more vines. So theoretically, if you were like a super efficient farmer, one tomato could yield you $1,000 in profit. Think about it. I'll check y'all.